Okay, so let me talk to you about something that I'm seeing a lot of, and honestly, coming from the dye-free movement, it is something that is bugging me, and so I need to speak about this. And I first want to say that I see a lot of you trying natural food color, whichever brand, doesn't really matter, but I've been seeing a lot of people trying dye-free, and that makes me so excited. I am pumped to see so many of you that are considering switching to natural food color, or at least giving options to your customers that you can offer natural food color. So first, well done for trying to take the plunge and just doing it, just like trying something. Like I said, regardless of the brand that you are using, it is a step in the right direction. So I'm very, very happy to see that. Something that has been bugging me about the people who are trying natural food color, just straight off the bat, there's a lot of you that are using way too much food color. And so I understand that with artificial food color, when you add more, you get more vibrancy. And while that can sometimes be true with natural color, most of the time it actually has the opposite effect. So let's chat about why that happens and how could adding more color possibly not get you more vibrant results. Okay, so natural pigments, they behave differently to artificial dye, and you would think that a lot of people would understand that, and I think that a lot of people do, but they don't know how. So they understand that it's natural, and I think it goes one step further in that they think it's natural and it's not going to give them the same results as artificial color because it's not artificial, and so it's just different. And that's fine, that's basically true. However, we can take it a few steps further than that as to why it does not perform the same as artificial food color. And the first thing is that natural food colors are pH sensitive. Not all of them, but a lot of them are. And when it comes to natural food color, for example, spirulina, which is pH sensitive, is not only found in blue natural food color. We have spirulina in blue, in green, in purple, sometimes in brown varieties. They've put blue in as well, or spirulina in as well. So that is just 4 off the bat, and that's just 4 colors. That's not all different shades that different brands might have, which contain spirulina. And so when it comes to mixing your colors and it's not turning out the way that you anticipated, adding more of that, as you can probably tell, is not going to help, because the problem is not the amount of pigment that you've added, it is the pH level of your icing, whether that be buttercream or royal icing. Royal icing is typically more of an issue when it comes to that than buttercream. The issue with buttercream is that you have the yellow undertones because most people don't whip their butter for long enough to give them nice white butter. And so that's usually what the issue is with buttercream. But with royal icing, the pH usually throws off a lot of natural colors. And so it's not something that needs to consume your every thought, but it is something that needs to be just right in the back of your head and just thinking to yourself, okay, this color doesn't look the way that it's meant to look or that I thought it would look. And so what is going on here in the pH of the color? The next aspect is that artificial dyes generally are a preservative themselves. They keep very long, and natural colors, they don't keep as long, and most natural color brands do not have preservatives. They do not add preservatives in with the natural colors. And so, especially in gel form, the color can oxidize because it's been exposed to oxygen, and so that messes up the pigment. And oftentimes when we are working with gel colors, sometimes even with the natural powders, but not so much, the product has been out for too long, and so it has oxidized, and then the color is going to look completely different. I actually did a video where I was coloring buttercream, and the purple that I used, it was a gel, natural gel based color. It was actually from Prism, and I had opened it and I hadn't used it, and I'd left it to sit for too long. By the time I had used it, and when I'm saying too long, this is months and months down the line, by the time I used it, it didn't even resemble purple whatsoever. It was kind of like a gray, muddy-ish, brown, weird kind of color, because the color had oxidized. And so the shelf life of natural color, typically because of that, is shorter. It is more so an issue in the gels, like I said, versus the powders. So that's another reason that powder, to me, is a little bit superior over the gels. But you want to keep in mind how old your product is when you are using it. This can also be an issue with brands that you might find in stores, such as like your Watkins or your 365 and that type of thing, because sometimes when a product is mass produced like that, it is sitting for long periods of time on the shelf, and if it has got any kind of oxygen in it or any kind of bacteria, even with the preservatives that they put in, it can cause the color to degrade over time. Then the last thing that can impact your color payoff at the end by using too much product is something that happens to the structure of your icing when it becomes unbalanced with the amount of product that you've added versus the amount of powdered sugar and meringue powder and all of that you have inside. So this can come from either adding just too much pigment in general. So the amount of pigment that you've added throws off the balance in the icing, and or over mixing. So oftentimes when we've added too much pigment, we've not only added too much pigment, but we've also over mixed it, because we just keep mixing that color in every time we add more color, and we have landed up over mixing the icing in addition to having too much color in there. And so you are dealing with potentially two problems. And what happens is the icing structure breaks down. And so even if you are leaving the icing to sit and to develop, because the icing structure isn't what it needs to be, the color separates, the pigment separates out, and it can cause your icing to be blotchy, but it can also cause the color to look dull. And especially when your icing dries, if it doesn't have that shiny finish to it, it looks as if you've dusted it with cornstarch, and you haven't. It is dull. It is because you've added too much product, and or you have overmixed it. Generally, it is actually both of them, because when you've added too much pigment, you've had to mix it so many times. I mean, sometimes people just add a huge old squirt in there and it's just like way too much, and so they haven't overmixed it, but usually they have overmixed it because they just keep adding more and more and more pigment because it's not turning out the way that they want. So that is an issue that I see oftentimes with people, is just using too much pigment and or over mixing it, and that causes the icing to be dull, and that's why you are not getting those deep vibrant shades that you want, because your icing is drying dull, and so the color or the shade looks different. Now let's talk about how to fix this problem, because there's no point me telling you about all of these problems and then not giving you solutions. So as you can probably guess, don't add too much product to begin with. You definitely want to add less than you think you are going to need, because there's this idea of like, okay, it's natural color, I need to add a lot of it. Don't fall into that trap. It is a myth. Yes, you are probably going to need more natural color than artificial color, but oftentimes it's less than you think. So don't add too much product too early. So this is the key, starting your icing early enough so that you can add a little bit of product and you can allow it to develop and you can see where the color is getting to. Over a 24-hour period, the difference that your icing can go through is amazing. You will be mind blown when you see the difference that your icing can go. So I'll just show a comparison here, probably from our very first video that I did with the red, what it looked like when I mixed it versus 24 hours later, because the difference is just crazy. Okay, once that pigment has had time to sit and to work its magic all the way through the icing and become properly dispersed in the icing, it is going to be like night and day difference. So you want to mix your color early enough. You want to use a little bit less product than you think that you need. You don't want to over mix it. All before this comes starting with a really good base, so you want to start with stiff icing. You don't want to thin your icing to consistency and then add the color. It is not going to dry properly. It is going to dry dull, if it even dries in the first place, and unfortunately you'll get splotching and all sorts of stuff. Unfortunately, that is happening to a lot of people who are using natural colors for the first time because they are using too much color. And so that is just something that I've seen off the bat. It's happening a lot. I wanted to address it because I don't want you to make those mistakes. I don't want you to use too much color. Start in advance. That's the biggest mind thing that you have to get around, is that you have to start your icing in advance. It very much can be done. You can become one of those people that starts ahead of time. Start a few days before you need your icing. Add a little bit of color, mix it in, see what it looks like the next day, adjust if you need to. That's why I recommend oftentimes having powder and gel-based color on hand, because the gels do not take nearly as long to develop. They kind of like a 30 minutes, and that's about as deep as it is going to get. So if you are on icing day, you need to start decorating and it is not the color that you need it to be, you can go and tweak it with a little bit of gel. Especially, this will work really well if you have not thinned your icing already. So you still have thick icing, it's just not the color it needs to be. You can add a few drops of your gel color to get it to where it needs to be, and then you haven't risked ruining your icing structure. So I hope that that was helpful. If you found this video helpful, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and just follow along for more dye-free decorating tips and tricks.